will formally thank you later, but from this angle right here, we are so blessed to be part of Montebello. Thank you. Here we go. One of the things you're going to find in my story is very different because my father did not get out. He was there in the war. I will give you a little bit of his story, but he was not able to get out in 1939. And what you are going to see in my pictures start in 1945. There is nothing left from his life before 1945. He was born, depending on who you talk to, either in 1909 or 1914. And you'll understand in a moment. He was brought up a very Orthodox Jew in a very small community. For those of you who have seen Fiddler on the Roof, that's my daddy's village. As he grew, he was drafted into the Polish army, was probably, the way we figure, probably around 1935, 1936, was taken prisoner in Russia and was in Siberia up until 1939. One of the things I will say is this story was never told by him to his daughters. The only people who heard this story, my husband Mark, my son-in-law, my brother-in-law Craig, and his grandsons to a little bit of portion. He would never, ever tell his girls any of these horrors. So, how does a girl find out what happened to her daddy? We asked questions, we asked, we looked. It was well into my 60s before I was able to start putting together these little bits and pieces and come up with any answers. Two stories. BP put me into a whole different league. I can tell my father's story blind, but for him to have asked, for me to what impacted and have in my life, and what are the stories that made the difference? Number one, as a young girl, I remember waking up to hearing him screaming in the middle of the night. How do you explain that to a child? What do you say? Well, you say, you know what? Mommies and daddies have nightmares too, just like you do. You accept. What did we know? It's fine. Daddy had a nightmare. Go back to sleep, girls, everything is fine. Other thing that I remember is my daddy didn't have those numbers. No numbers. How come? Everybody else I knew in my group, just like Susan, everybody had numbers. Why didn't my daddy have a number? The answer? Very simple and totally accepted by me. I wasn't at the place that they were giving out numbers. So, Daddy, where were you? I was in the woods and in the forest. Okay, well, people go to the forest and they go camping. That didn't sound so horrible. We accepted. And that's how our lives kind of went on. Daddy, could you have done something like this? No. It was like in a movie, it wasn't me. So years went by and we learned more and more. And the stories were pretty vivid. He was a young man taken in to the army. He was trained to be an apprentice, as a tailor. After the war, after 1939 when he was released, he and 3 other Jewish prisoners of war escaped and found their way and tried to head back to Poland. He was from Poland. Tried to head back to Poland to find out, where is everybody? Where's my family? What's going on? Where is anything? He ended up in the woods and came across a family, a Polish family, who said, you know what? You're safe here. Go sleep in the barn, you'll be fine. They immediately turned to the Gestapo, told them that they were in the barn. That very same night, the barn was set on fire. My father jumped from the 2nd story, was shot, and left for dead. The other 2 men with him somehow managed to get into the forest. I don't know how long he lay there pretending to be dead, but they took him, brought him into the forest, and nursed him back to health. That is where he stayed from 1939 to 1945. For any of you who saw the movie Defiance with Daniel Day-Lewis, it was the same forest and the same woods that my father was in. He was not a Bielski, but he had his own community. It was not until I was teaching, and I was well in my 60s, that this little town called Santa Vicia was the same town that was talked about in the movie. Now I actually had a place. My dad was actually somewhere that I heard of in the community. He stayed there until 1945. He was a partisan in the fact that he lived in the community and had a job. His job was to take small children in a wheelbarrow, take their mouths, put hay on top of them, and take them to the next place, to the next person who was there to try to save a child. Oh, that's their wedding picture. Okay. After the war, he had no place to go. There was no place to go. There was no town, there was no parents, there were no brothers, there were no sisters, there were nobody. He ended up in Germany in a displaced persons camp and stayed from 1945 to 1950, working odd jobs. Just so you know, a displaced persons camp was a community within itself. It was a gated community. You always come back to your roots. It was a gated community, a little higher gates though, I think. And you were allowed to go out and work and then come back. So the story I got from my father during this whole time was we did really well. We had a bakery, we baked, it was great. The other part of this thing that everybody said, there was anybody who survived became your aunts and uncles. So they were not your blood relatives, but they were your aunts and uncles. And he used to tell me, you know, your Aunt Phyllis, we did so well, your Aunt Phyllis had a maid. And my cousin Esther, she did great, she went to school. He died, he was well in his hundreds. And at his funeral, I told this story, and my cousin said, that's not how it was. I said, what do you mean? That's what he told me. No. She said, they had nothing. We didn't have a maid. My mom was the maid. And I was the one who went along with her on her back. That's my cousin Esther. Okay, here we go, my impact. And in 1950, they finally, somebody in the United States, an old relative, finally opened a clothing, he opened a factory down, right. He had Himalaya Sweater Company. And they brought my father, they sponsored my father because they knew he was a tailor, and he went right into the sweatshops and worked 16 to 18 hours a day and was part of that whole world. He met my mom, who was very much an American woman. She had one of the very few women that had a doctorate in art education. Mind you, my father had an education probably comparable to second grade, maybe. And my mom's a whole different story. They got married, they had 2 incredible children. You're very adorable. And my sister is a physician, and I actually have my master's in criminal justice, which meant nothing to me ever. Mark and I, is my impact. Why am I doing what I'm doing? So just so that you know, for the last 43 years, I have had the honor and the privilege to teach, to be with children, to be able to give them an idea of what my history was like so that they can go ahead and learn. Today, I am incredibly honored to have several of students from Congregation Beth here with us to hear your testimony. Ilana's back there, Jamie's back there, Ben, Aaron, Emma, who else? Connor, Ben's back there too. There they are. These are my kids that I watched grow up, and I am so honored that you have joined us today. Thank you all. That we can have these kids kids that are still willing to come and listen to us talk. In the back also, and I will get to it, there's also a library of books that I brought in that are just a little snippet of some of the books that we use in school to tell the tale. Now, why did I become a teacher? In 1975, Mark and I were married and went to Louisiana. I went from the Bronx to New Orleans, Louisiana, where the KKK was still on every street, where the announcements for the KKK meetings were in every newspaper. For those of you that know the Times-Picayune, right there in front of you, in my face. We were there because Mark had a job. In 1980, we were blessed with a little boy who happens to be right there. And we decided at that point, we had to get out of New Orleans, Louisiana. Raising my nice little Jewish boy there was not what I wanted. We went to New Jersey, we found a community, and I started to teach. And all of a sudden, it really felt good. And I saw kids grow up from preschool. And lo and behold, we were blessed with our little girl. And from that, who happens to be sitting right there. And from that point on, that was my career. I have been so honored to be able to share, to be able to do this, to be able to talk to my kids and give them an idea of what life was like when it wasn't quite so simple and quite so easy. So, having said that, I think it's time for us, and I'm looking at my wife so we can have a little Q&A. I have a closing. Our thanks to Geetha, Nancy, and the entire team for making this possible. My special thanks to Geetha, who took me out of my comfort zone and enabled me to forge a very special family right here. We are all here tonight, laughing, crying, holding hands, eating, for one purpose, to be the voice of our families. To the 6 million Jews who were tortured, gassed, slaughtered for no other reason than being Jews, we bear witness. To the millions of non-Jews, the women, men, children who were murdered simply because they were gay, they were disabled, they were neurodivergent, or because they didn't have blue eyes, we bear witness. This one's the toughie. For the survivors who are no longer with us, may their memories be for a blessing. We bear witness. And for the survivors who are here today, you are our miracles. May you live to be a healthy 120. We, Max, all of us, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, pledge to continue to bear witness. You all have heard first-hand testimony. Oh wait, I'm sorry. To those of you here tonight, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being here. We thank you for listening. And mostly, we thank you for questioning. You have heard first-hand testimonies of the atrocities man can do to man. Only when diversity, equality, and inclusion are not just words, but they are the norms, can we all live in a world of peace. Olam Shel Shalom. We now ask you to be the bearers of witness, to bear witness to the injustices of the world. May each of you